why did you feel the need to ask for him to be barred from practicing law as part of the condition of law?
It would just seemed absurd to me that he would be convicted of BARRATRY and then walk out of the courtroom and start representing people. The court has kind of broad general authority to impose conditions that ensure the safety of the community. So that's why we thought it necessary to ask for that. We'll be immediately sending certified copies of the charging instruments and the judgments in this case to the Office of the Chief Disciplinary Counsel. We've already been talking to them. They're essentially the prosecuting arm of the State Bar of Texas, which will be prosecuting the case against Mr. Reynolds, at least partly based on these BARRATRY offenses.
Okay, no, specifically about the offense, what is legal and what is not regarding trying to get clients in this manner?
That's a really complicated question. I would say to understand that fully, you'd have to look at the Penal Code, Section 3812. But I can tell you that the offense for which Mr. Reynolds was prosecuted in this case was the misdemeanor Class A offense associated with 3812, which is essentially contacting accident victims fewer than 31 days after an accident to solicit legal employment.
Okay.
And he didn't do that himself, to be clear. The evidence showed that he paid a man named Robert Valdez to do that for him.
Okay, all right, thank you. Mike, let's get him real quick with me.
Okay.
Tell me your reaction to what you ruled.
Well, I rarely disagree with a judge, but in this case, I absolutely 100%, and I think the law disagrees with this judge. This judge has entered an order saying to Mr. Reynolds, on one hand, you need to take care of your family and maintain your livelihood. On the other side, it says, but we're not going to let you. I mean, I don't understand that at all. I don't think that's within the court's purview, and certainly if it is, it extends far beyond what a remedy might be. Not only that, let me back up a minute too. What the prosecution has said about some criminal enterprise, I hope the media picked up on that, because that was absolutely false. They brought two people in here to this trial that I'm aware of who talked about they had a complaint with Mr. Reynolds. Mr. Reynolds testified that he has over hundreds and hundreds of clients. Now, 2 out of hundreds and hundreds of clients doesn't sound like an epidemic to me, except somebody made it up. And somebody made it up with the intent to get the result that they've gotten. He says he's talking to the State Bar. Well, if the State Bar wanted to be involved in this, they would have been here. They would have been here. Ask around, where's the State Bar now? I don't think he's any more capable of representing the State Bar than I am. But I can tell you this, that this ruling by this judge will not stand. It will absolutely be turned over.
Are you going to challenge this?
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, this is typical Conroe justice, and I don't think I have to say anything else.
Exactly.
How can you advise? I mean, this must be so tough on your family right now.
It's been pretty tough on my family, primarily to sit here every day, every minute, every second, and to see our so-called criminal justice system in action, the ability to leave certain things out, the ability to embellish. More embellishment occurred not too long ago. So that part's very distracting and heartbreaking, as I hear many talk about it all of the time. But justice in the end, I'm confident, will prevail. Personally, it is emotionally draining. You marry someone, you love them, and you take those vows, and this experience to me is my opportunity, as other spouses, I'm sure, to actually show what those vows mean. And so that's what I am committed to. Pray all day, and we'll just continue to persevere very positively. I think one other evidence of the fact that Lady Justice was not so blind is the fact that a 6-time convicted felon or 7-time convicted felon, not sure, but Conroe Justice was to bring him in a suit. Conroe Justice was to bring a Class A misdemeanor, and yes, guilty legally, guilty, factually innocent is our position as a family. To have my husband come in shackled, handcuffed and all that, regardless of ADA's belief of inability to sleep at night, there's no reason to drag somebody in under those conditions based on what he was legally charged for and the jurors decided to convict him for. All the other stuff, highly unacceptable. Clearly, there was an agenda, and the ADA has made that clear. We do want a state rep. Well, they made sure he paraded through, and they got their state rep. So I hope they can sleep at night. I still give thanks to God, and we are a praying family. Our children have grown up that way. And the fact that they do it all again, to shave off 95 years of an individual's life to ensure that that state rep that they wanted spends a night in jail. And let's talk about that. He spent a night in jail because conveniently the system did not allow us to have the appeal hearing and to know what the court fees were because staff were let go. So he had to spend the night in jail. So if that helps him sleep at night, while this other convicted felon, who I understand during the trial, because I was there, and I was there with the others, made it very clear who knew and who did not know. But again, words mean a lot, so I heard a new summary of things that never even came up: criminal enterprise, mastermind, and all these wonderful titles they gave my husband while they tried to strip him of the one he earned, and that was father, family man, state representative, attorney. I'm not here to cast stones. I'm just here to call a spade a spade. And unfortunately, the Conroe system, and it's no offense to anyone who lives in Conroe, we certainly don't, but that didn't matter. No offense to Conroe, but this is an unusual process, and we definitely will make sure that no matter what, others don't have to go through what we've gone through. So it's unfortunate, probably said more than you wanted to know, but we live to fight another day.
Okay. How do you explain this to your kids? I mean, this must be so tough talking to them.
You know, my twins are 4 years old, so they miss mommy and they miss daddy. When he goes away to Austin, you know, their support system, so they have that sense. But last week was really tough. My daughter, even though they're twins, she's more expressive, and Mommy, you abandoned us, so we talked a lot about that. Thankfully, they don't have the ability to really process, nor had I mentioned anything about arrest or anything, but my heart breaks for Lacey. She's older, friends are drawing conclusions, and you know, media has its place, and I don't fault media. I mean, anybody here today hearing the comments that ADA Joel mentioned, he brought up things that were never, ever evidenced during the trial. So my heart breaks that, you know, we're about to give thanks, and this little girl has to hear or read in, you know, the paper that her dad led a criminal enterprise. Never, ever was that what he was convicted of. So my heart breaks in how Lacey's mother has explained. In fact, we talked last night. That was very limited battery on my phone, but that was the call I made to her mother and whatever support that we could provide. I wanted her to be here so she could hug her dad, talk to her dad. And then I said, you know what? My gut tells me, based on what I've experienced every day and every minute here, my gut tells me they're going to do whatever they can to make sure he comes in dressed like a criminal. So don't bring Lacey. Even though I know she needs to talk to her dad and hug her dad, don't bring her, because I'm pretty convinced. Talked to a number of friends, those who work in the system, and never did they imagine that something would be designed to keep him in jail last night. They were all adamant, but there's no reason why he should come in jail clothes. And I said, but from what I have seen and experienced, that is what's going to happen. And so Sarah called and said, you were right, he's in jail. So I wasn't surprised, which is sad. Lady Justice is not blind, and it doesn't mean that my heart doesn't go out to, if it was one client adversely impacted, I am not unemotional about that. But I have to be singularly emotional and concerned for, you know, my family and some of the egregious steps that have been taken so that 88 Joel can sleep at night. And for him, it's to make sure that the convicted felon gets out in a couple of years and that he takes care of a whole nother system, which is, I hope he can sleep at night.
What's
Let me
y'all's
ask you
next
about,
step?
what about, you're saying bring him in here jail clothes. Why should he have special treatment than anyone else that comes in jail clothes on, it's a normal procedure up here. Why
Yeah.
should he have special treatment?
And you said special, and I don't know, were you here last week?
Yes, ma'am?
And you were here the day that the 6-time convicted felon testified?
Yes, that
Okay,
was during a trial, through a
I didn't-
jury trial.
I didn't recall seeing you,
Okay,
but
yes.
if you recall, he was dressed in a suit. I would think that's special treatment because I'm sure he had to disrobe from the attire he had on in prison. So I'm not sure if he got special treatment. I'm not familiar with the criminal justice system. So for me as a layperson, to see a 6-time convicted felon testify, and if that's the condition as to why the wardrobe changed, I think there was a testimony here today. I'm not an attorney, I'm just a layperson. So visually, it sent to me a message that Lady Justice was offering special treatment, and it was adverse against my husband. And not now, if the 6-time convicted felon had come dressed in his prison attire, perhaps that conversation or your question would have some legitimacy.
What about, you don't
But
have a jury
your
or anything present?
I'm
though?
sorry.
You don't have a jury present tonight?
I'm sorry, but because your question and you acknowledge that you saw him dressed that way, then I don't understand the nature of your question. But you said because there's no jury, that's why he should have been dressed a certain way? Is that what
No,
were you
I'm saying in a
asking?
jury, a standard jury, you don't have them dressed like that.
I wouldn't
On a court
know.
case like this, it's a standard operation up here.
The misdemeanor?
Misdemeanor
Up here?
Without, the trial's finished. It's a final
What's-
conviction.
you said
and
up
it's
here.
an appeal.
Okay, you're saying up here in
Right.
Conroe. I don't know Conroe's business,
Okay.
nor am I familiar with the criminal justice system. Believe it or not, I've never been exposed to it. But for the camera purposes, hopefully you don't delete it. Again, 6-time convicted felon, suited up, and a state representative, which matters least to me, but an individual convicted of a misdemeanor coming in jail clothes and handcuffs, I find that highly contradictory
All right.
in
Thank you.
nature. You're
Thank
quite
you.
welcome, sir.
To your question,
Yes, sir.
they could have brought him out. That's a jail cell.